500 years before modern banks, one financial family changed the world. They allowed money to travel across continents without moving a single coin. They financed merchants, kings, and even the Pope, and became one of the most powerful families in history. This is the story of the Medici family. In medieval Europe, lending money for profit was not just frowned upon, it was a mortal sin. The church called it usury. Charging interest meant making money from money itself. Any Christian who engaged in usury risked excommunication and eternal damnation. But Europe had a problem. Commerce was growing fast. Merchants needed capital to buy goods. Traders needed financing months before their ships returned with profit. Even the Catholic Church needed enormous sums of money. Cathedrals had to be built. Administrations had to run. Armies had to be funded. Europe needed credit. But lending with interest was a mortal sin. And there was another problem. Money itself had to travel. Gold collected in Rome needed to reach Florence. Funds collected in England needed to reach the Vatican. The only way to move wealth was to move the gold itself. Heavy wagons carried fortunes across hundreds of miles, and wherever gold traveled, danger followed. Caravans were robbed. Entire fortunes could vanish in minutes. Even the Catholic Church was not safe. When a shipment of papal gold disappeared, the consequences were immediate. Construction stopped, payments halted, and Rome was furious. The church controlled enormous wealth, yet its money was dangerously exposed. Something had to change. The solution came from a banker, a quiet, careful man named Giovanni de' Medici. Giovanni realized something simple. Gold didn't need to move, only trust did. His solution was called a bill of exchange. A merchant could deposit gold in Florence and receive a written promise instead. That document could be redeemed in another city. Florence, Rome, Venice, Naples. Gold stayed safely in vaults, but money could move across distance instantly. For the Catholic Church, the system was revolutionary. Papal money no longer needed dangerous caravans. Funds could move safely through the Medici banking network. Now, the Medici didn't invent the bill of exchange. Merchants had been using rough versions of it for a century, but it was a messy, high-risk system and very little trust between parties. Giovanni's genius was in building trust through transparency. By pairing the bill of exchange with his new double-entry system, he turned a pinky promise into a verifiable financial instrument. Every transaction was now mirrored, debit and credit, the two pillars of modern accounting. If you look at your bank statement today, you're looking at the exact same format Giovanni perfected 600 years ago. To keep this sprawling empire honest, Giovanni enforced a strict annual audit. Every year, the ledgers from Florence, Rome, Naples, and Venice were synced. They were physically transported back to the headquarters in Florence. Once in Florence, Giovanni's elite clerks would cross-reference every book. If a merchant in Naples claimed a debt, the ledger in Florence had to prove it. For the first time, trust wasn't a feeling, it was a calculation. This transparency made the Medici Bank the gold standard of Europe. Kings and merchants didn't just use them because they were rich, they used them because their data was trustable and accurate. Soon, the Medici became the official bankers of the Pope. This gave the Medici Bill of Exchange the highest respect. But hidden inside the Bill of Exchange was something even more powerful: a loan. A merchant could receive money today and repay it later in another city. Because currencies differed between cities, they could profit from the exchange rate that they set themselves. Not technically interest, but economically, it worked exactly the same way. And since it was a system used by the Pope himself, it was not considered usury. What began as a way to move money safely became the foundation of international banking. Merchants borrowed money. Kings borrowed money. Even the Pope relied on the system. And at the center of it all was the Medici family. Bankers who had just invented the foundations of modern finance. In 1429, the architect of the Medici Empire passed away, leaving his son Cosimo an inheritance of 180,000 gold florins and the most sophisticated financial network ever built. To understand the real value of the Medici Bank, you have to value them like a tech monopoly. If you were to IPO the Medici Bank today, its market cap would be in the trillions. They were the SWIFT network, JP Morgan and the IRS all rolled into one. They didn't just have money, they owned the financial rails of the Western world. Now Giovanni was a brilliant banker, but his son Cosimo was a mastermind. Under Cosimo, the Medici Bank didn't just grow, it became a shadow government. He understood a fundamental rule of finance. If you own the debt of a king, you own the king. He expanded the branch system to 16 major cities, but he kept a holding company structure. Each branch was a separate legal entity. If the London branch crashed, the Florence headquarters was legally protected by a corporate firewall. The Medici Bank's resilience, meticulous collection and verification of data made them the preferred financial network in Europe. They were effectively the primary dealers for the papacy, taking a fee on every tithe collected in Christendom. In a world of land and swords, the Medici owned the data, which proved to be the most powerful of all. But having a trillion-dollar monopoly made them a target, and to survive, Cosimo spent his profits on the ultimate PR campaign, the Renaissance. He famously said, "Envy is a plant that should not be watered." By spending his money on the public, he turned potential enemies into grateful citizens. He poured millions of florins into cathedrals, libraries, and art. Donatello, Brunelleschi, Fra Angelico, they were all on the Medici payroll. This wasn't just charity, it was social ROI. Cosimo expanded the Medici Bank to its greatest extent. You could say he was as powerful as a Roman emperor, able to control kings and politics in Europe and beyond. The name Medici became as famous and powerful as any noble family name. They produced some of the most powerful figures in Europe, including 4 popes, Leo X, Clement VII, Pius IV, Leo XI, and a few queens, including Catherine and Mary de' Medici. But after Cosimo's passing, his heirs weren't as interested in banking. By 1494, the greatest bank in the world collapsed. Heirs stopped auditing and started making ego loans to princes. Loans weren't paid back, and the bank began to decline. But while the gold was gone, the system remained. Every time you check a modern bank statement, you're looking at the double-entry format they perfected. In the game of finance, the one with the best information always wins. And for a century, that was the Medici.
Gold on the table, ink on the deed, counting out coins while the city still bleeds. Silk on my back, saints on the wall. Pray if you want, but I'm funding it all. Got popes on the line, dukes on the side. They kissing my ring just to borrow my pride. You flex one purse, boy, I own 5 streets. I tax your wheat when you're trying to eat. Ledger so thick, need a scribe for the sum. Stamping my seal on 100 more sums. From Florence to Flanders, I'm naming my feet. Every caravan walking is working for me, yeah. Cosimo got money in the vaults in the floor. Money in the chapel, in the tiles, in the door. Money in the mouth of every man that owes. So much money. Florence let it flow. Cosimo got money in the fields and the ships. Money in the rumor on the gossiper's lips. Money in the votes when the council shows. So much money. everybody know. Walk through the market, hush when I pass. Boys sell bread, but I'm selling they pass. Loan you a coin, and I loan you a prayer. Miss one payment, I'll be on in your square. Pockets like palaces, ceiling so high. Paint me as a pilgrim, devil in the eyes. Angels in the fresco, demons in the rake. Smile in your face while I calculate. Turn copper to power, silver to say so. Turn rival to debtor, debtor to payroll. You got swords, I got signatures, same man. You swing steel, I make bankers bend.